Hello.
Yes. Hello. Welcome, everybody.
Welcome.
Back to Insanity Check. Once again, I am Ken. This is
Skillet Sauce.
And we're here to freak you out or fuck you up, whichever one happens.
Yeah, bring out some more fucked up news from around the world.
And this is fucked up.
It's pretty bad.
So if you remember last week's show, we did a very disturbing more to Skillet than to myself, but disturbing to the most of the people who heard about this, about the lady who's having a lesbian affair with her own daughter. And we had an interesting conversation about it on not necessarily whether the story was creepy, because everyone can agree that it's creepy, but whether it's actually wrong, whether it's just part of who we are or what we do as a species. Fuck society. What are we as a species? And I've said numerous times on this show that I think humans are fucking we're monsters.
We clearly are.
At least that's what you'd have to classify the stuff that
we're able to do to one another.
Right.
I mean,
and we say these things are horrible and that only certain people do this stuff, but I think it's more widespread. And
just like all the beheading things that's going on, how people can just sit there and chop a person's head off and saw a person's head off slowly and pose and kick the head around and all stuff, or like people eviscerating people and degiblitizing them and all that other kind of shit.
And while again, we as Americans, sit on our high horse and look down and point and say, "Oh, these savages! Look at what they're doing to human beings." But
just look at the history of this country.
Exactly. I mean,
telling Native Americans that kind of shit.
That's exactly where I was going.
Tell them about that.
Scalping, which is what most people think, the Indians did. No, the white man taught the Indians how to do that shit. These us civilized Americans were the ones doing this shit, and a whole host of other horrible things. But this is not an American story.
But it is tragic.
But
this is very bad.
And okay. So I'm sure you all know who Nicole Kidman is. She hasn't really been a big star for a few years now.
Her light is fading a little bit, but she was married to Tom Cruise at one point. Was she married to him?
Yeah.
At one point, yeah. I think you're married to him, and Australian actress.
Right.
Yeah.
So basically, her father died, and apparently, the circumstances of his death are still kind of shady, but the stories that's come out since this dude's died has been
horrific,
monstrous. It's horrific. Monstrous,
horrific.
Dr. Anthony Kidman died Friday after fleeing Australia when accused of the sexual abuse and murder of children in an elite Sydney pedophile ring. Okay. A month prior, Fiona Barnett, had filed a complaint with the Australian NSW Police and Child Abuse Royal Commission, alleging Kidman sexually and physically assaults on her throughout childhood. When the commission opened an investigation, the clinical psychologist suddenly left his 43 years with the Sydney University of Technology and Royal North Shore Hospital to stay in Singapore until he died. The family has refused to comment on, and Singapore police opened an investigation onto what they termed as an unnatural death. So basically, now I'm just gonna
as an unnatural death. What, did he off himself? Did they? Well, did the other cloak and dagger fucking crew off this dude or something? I mean, because the thing that stuck out. I mean, okay, we've done stories about pedophiles. I mean, we've covered a lot of harsh topics on this show. Unsettling topics on this show. So that's not the part that that I find is the sticking point for me. It's the whole thing about the elite pedophile ring, because I've been hearing murmurs about these things, about these elite underground horrible fucking rings. I forget the guy's name. I believe we covered it on the show, but I know I definitely saw it. There was a cat that was supposedly some sort of celebrity, some sort of personality in England, in the UK, that went down in dirty flames posthumously because he too was part of some sort of super duper elite horrible fucking ring of pedophiles. Now, the conspiracy theory people, they say stuff about, the whoever you consider the Illuminati, the Bilderbergs, whatever you consider those super upper, they have different tastes because they can have anything. Money, nothing has any value to them. Just power and subjugation and all those different things is what gets their juices flowing. So they, do strange shit, or what I think is abhorrent things like this. But, and now you said you saw a documentary, some horrible fucking documentary about this particular
type
subject.
of situation. I forgot the website. It's just a website that has nothing but documentaries on it. And a lot of, conspiracy documentaries. The stuff dealing with, the food industry. What's those horrible motherfuckers? Monsanto, stuff like that. And this was a documentary where they had people who claimed to be survivors of just such a thing. And they were talking about how here in the United States, now I believe it was Chicago, they were part of like that Eyes Wide Shut shit where, there's just a room full of Sodom and Gomorrah shit going on. Well, that's what these kids,
a pack of elite sodomites,
basically
with power tools and shit, doing terrible things to children.
Right, and they said that this shit was going on, that government officials were involved in this shit. The whole, just the standard stuff, just conspiracy horror, and. This sounds exactly. I mean, I don't know if these are the same factions. I don't know if they're different groups. I don't know if this was, the Australian version, exactly. But it sounds very similar to what these other people were saying that was going on. So this woman,
I was just checking out this line. Kidman was responsible for ensuring that I never disclosed pedophile ring activities that I witnessed as a child. She continued. He failed. News of Kidman's death impacted me. Someone who has undergone intense treatment. I know that there are other victims of Kidman's crimes out there who are perhaps not as far along the healing path as I am. I anticipate the news of Kidman's death may have a serious impact on these victims. A perpetrator's death can even trigger suicidal ideation. Now, this is a suicidal ideation.
So this is what one of the things that this woman claimed that in it. I found there was a side video that I didn't get to watch the whole thing, but. It was a woman who was talking about how she, as a child, again, she was set upon by these monsters, and they were shocking her, and then like stimulating her genitals and shit, her clitoris, until she had orgasms when she was like, a small child, and she said they were teaching her mother how to do this, so that her mother would be able to shock her and bring an orgasm to like fuse. Torture with sexual pleasure and all sorts of horrible shit. But
no, this is
so this really, this is what this woman said in this story.
Jesus
the one who was accusing Nicole Kidman's dad. So this is what she says. She says, since the tender age of 3, Barnett had been trapped inside Australia's vast pedophile network, where children were sex trafficked, hunted down for sport, and murdered. In the late afternoon of October 28, 1975, I was taken to my 6th birthday party in the Kiama rainforest, Barnett said. The cordial was spiked with drugs. I fell asleep. When I awoke, it was dark and I was laying naked, face up, spread eagle, on a picnic table with my hands and legs tied. Perpetrators took turns sneaking up on me. A large group of men arrived in pickup trucks. They carried rifles and had a pack of starving Doberman dogs. I was told that the group of naked children huddled nearby were my responsibility. My responsibility. I was to run and hide them. Every child I failed to hide would be killed and fed to the dogs.
That's horrible.
They painted something on my back and chest and then released us. I pushed the children up over the first steep hill. It was about the second or third hill that the hunting party reached us. Shots were fired and children began dropping all around me. With all hope lost of saving the other children, I took off and ran for my life.
Christ. I mean, that is about as macabre as you can possibly imagine. I mean, just think of the imagery. Picking off these fucking children off a fence like magpies. just shooting them like clay ducks, pow, 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 and then feeding their bodies to starving dogs to be ravaged and torn apart. I mean, this.
But you've heard about stuff like this in the movies.
The thing is, okay, see,
like
this really goes back to, I'm sorry to cut you off, but I mean, I see when you talk about what defines us, and when you take the complete filters off, and when I think of these so-called elite, where we do a lot of things in our lives because we don't want to go to jail. So, you might get into an argument. I would knock you out, but I don't want to go to jail. Or you want to curse your boss, but you don't want to because you need that money. What happens if you don't have to obey any of the laws of the land? Any of them? Because this is disturbing on so many different fronts because, okay, fine, there's the sexual component. Why would you want to I guess it's because you want to impose your dominance over a smaller person. But then the killing part, the taking of life, when you feel that you are beyond prosecution by any known laws of the land, is this what you become?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, you think about it, again, I've said this before, you look at, I had this movie idea, right? This is like right after 9/11. And they were talking about, the war on terror, blah, 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 blah. Which, by the way, I don't believe the terrorists had much to do with that, but that's another story. And I started thinking, I'm like, okay, so you have these suicide bombers, okay? So you have a bunch of cats who are teaching a bunch of other cats that you need to do this stuff right here. And if you do it, your Lord and Savior, your God, will not only meet you in heaven, but then provide you with, hilariously enough, virgins. Because that's what I guess all guys just want, to plow through some virgins, like these guys obviously wanted to do. But, you removed all earthly fear. I'm like, what can a person on earth do to stop you from committing these acts when in your mind you believe that either there is no fucking penalty for what you're about to do, or there'll be rewards for what you're about to do? Which can't put a whole movie idea, but my point is just, yes, that is basically it. If you are, and maybe most people can't understand what type of power we're talking about here, like beyond presidential shit. I mean,
literally no.
Obama's, whatever president in the United States is a pawn to people like this. Okay, when you have that type of power, you literally, again, you get like you said, when like why do some of these rock stars, start banging each other? I mean, talking about the dudes, because if you fucked 1,000 women last year, okay,
you snorted the best drugs,
right,
fucked the best women.
What's left?
Yeah, it's like where does your mind go? Where does your mind go? I mean, it's telling that there's so many different stories of people in power doing horribly demonic things throughout history. I mean, and this was the Ninth Circle Satanic Child Sacrifice Cult. I mean, they actually named themselves.
Yeah.
They named themselves like the fucking Super Friends. I'm like, this is incredible. It's nightmarish because I guess I am victim of, in a small portion of the mentality of the people that we condemned on last week's show. The whole soapboxing, believing you're better than, maybe this, really, if you strip away, the beatings that I had as a child, you strip away the literature that I read that made me feel that I was supposed to behave a certain way and all these different things like that, who knows what I might be? Because I can't even put myself in the same hemisphere as these people when it comes to mentality of shooting a child. First of all, I mean, I don't know what that child would have to do. It would have to be one of them babies from It's Alive. If you've ever seen that old 70s movie, that shit, It's Alive 3 is one of the funniest movies. That shit with that phone, they threw that phone through the window. That's just mad funny. Super cheap old 70s horror movies garbage. But it would have to be a monster child, a child from hell, or something like Chucky come to life, or something like that. I couldn't imagine just setting children free and just shooting them, and then if they happen to live, whatever, sodomizing them and doing all these other terrible, horrible things. And you know what? Going back to one of our other shows, I wonder what Artie White Fox has to say about this shit. I wonder if he feels that individuals like that should not be condemned.
Well,
we
got to him about fucking dogs and fucking children.
Yeah,
we didn't get to anything about murder.
Yeah, exactly. I'm just curious.
Send us a message, Artie. How do you feel about murdering children?
Yeah,
is that cool too?
I'm just curious. I mean, because this whole thing, like you said, it brings up some very important questions. It's too easy to dismiss this as they're sick. Okay, I think that's obviously they're sick. Or at least I hope they are. And that's
depends on your definition of sick.
Yeah, it depends on
because if they're fully functioning people, and again, these are the people who fucking control mass portions of fucking the world in which we live in.
Yeah.
Yet they can compartmentalize. Okay, I gotta sit up straight, use the use the proper fork when I eat the salads and run multi-billion-dollar corporations. But on my downtime, I like running up in the asses of little fucking 6-year-old girls.
Yeah, skinning them and all kind of terrible torture. You said electrocuting them into. I mean, this is just really sordid and sick, and it just, I really, I wish we had like a serious shrink or some papers written on this that we can really break this down from a scientific, vantage point to try and ascertain exactly where that line from what I feel is our moral line, where does it end and where does it,
I mean, obviously,
or is that just completely cultural and social? I mean,
would
my morals be the same if I were not brought up in North America, if I was brought up in Europe or brought up in Africa or whatever? Because I would hope to think that seeing a child get hurt would always impact me the same way, and I would hope that if I had all the money in the world, and all the power in the world, that I still would feel the same way.
Well, you mean you'd hope that, but
I would hope that.
If you're like these fucking poor fucking kids in the Middle East who are drafted into fucking gun militias and whatever else have you, or in Africa, these fucking little 10-year-olds walking around with M16s. I don't think that seeing a fucking other 10-year-olds get his brains shot out affects them as it affects us.
I think we're fucked up. You know why? Because you think of this is all about power and power corrupting individuals. And when you think of the ethnic cleansing overseas, you think of anything when the people have the guns, what they're able to do to people that do not have the guns. How they can just wipe out villages because they have the might, they have the strength. Apparently, we're just really just fucked up. I mean, there's no real way for me to get around it. I mean, this is just another example of just how bad humans can be.
We're trying to